the URA people, the Singapore Tourist Promotion Board here, and I'm quoting, right? Breathing with life, capturing the essence of the old Chinese lifestyle with its temples and shophouses, and nurturing a handful of traditional trades such as herbalists, temple idol carvers, calligraphers, and effigy makers in the face of progress, unquote. By the 1990s, the architectural restoration and subsequent gentrification of Chinatown were already in progress. In accordance to neoliberal tenets of self-sufficiency, the URA determined the stringent guidelines that regulate Chinatown's development, but encouraged private investors to implement the actual conservation projects by lifting rent control and waiving development charges. Right, and here are examples of restored shophouses, and these are shophouses taken from Boat Quay, right? Actually very ugly if you ask me, but right. URA also promoted certain trades like herbal tea shops and proscribing others like engineering workshops, but left the actual determination of the trades to the vagaries of free market competition. After all, successful buyers of conserved buildings must make economic returns to continue to restore and maintain these buildings. Although it appears to contradict the earlier phase of urban renewal, the conservation of Chinatown shares similar ideological emphases, like the disciplining of the urban form through controlling the types of land use. While the URA stressed difference through such measures as the use of traditional motifs in the restoration, and you can see here through the use of the lanterns to indicate Chineseness, right? It still achieved this difference within the ambit of modernist planning and goals. For many of Chinatown's residents, however, the cultural life of the place does not reside simply in the architectural form. The state's policies notwithstanding, many retailers feared that an open tender system would eventually squeeze out the small traditional businesses in favor of more upmarket shops. Indeed, many family-owned shops selling food and knickknacks faded out because they could not afford the post-conservation rental hikes. Those that survived did so by often diversifying into more profitable operations like dim sum, kum, herbal tea restaurants. Chinatown's residents are not entirely oblivious to the irony that the state's conservation efforts have critically damaged the day-to-day cultural life of the place. Reflecting Gramsci's assertion that hegemony can never be fully established, many residents think that while the conserved shophouses are, quote, nice and charming, they are not for us anymore, unquote. This is mainly because of the perceived over-commercialization of Chinatown. Although the URA claims that the conservation is primarily for Singaporeans and that tourism is secondary, it is evident that targeting the tourist dollar is a crucial goal of the conservation project. Right? As you can see here, right, this is what happened, like a typical scene in Chinatown nowadays. You stroll down Chinatown in the afternoon and this is what you will see. Right? Retail shops that specialize in tourist souvenirs and novelty items have replaced the old family-owned businesses. As a result, Chinatown now takes on at night the silence of a ghost town without a soul in sight, when compared to pre-conservation times when it can be said to be a place with no night. Taking advantage of state incentives to redevelop Chinatown, entrepreneurs first set up their gay businesses there in the mid-1990s. Among these original businesses are the now defunct bathhouse Vibra and the still operating nightclub Taboo. Other businesses followed, keen on taking advantage of both Chinatown's proximity to gyms frequented by gay men and the economies of scale that the growing cluster generated. This infiltration is not without irony. The state conserves Chinatown to buttress Singapore against such Western ills as homosexuality. But Chinatown now harbors in its very heart a direct and thriving manifestation of these immoral influences. Indeed, many of the gay businesses number the nationally gazetted monument of the Jamaica Mosque, the Singapore Hokkien Association, and other institutions of state power as their next-door neighbours. In the light of state-imposed heteronormativity, many of the interlocutors I interviewed during fieldwork in the summer of 2005 agreed that gay businesses represent a positive development towards sexual equality. While I agree with my informants, I also maintain that gentrified Chinatown is also a homo-normalizing space, because the gay business there, most of them anyway, shy away from challenging the status quo. Beanie asserts that gay businesses simultaneously prove gay people's productive capabilities and negate portrayals in popular discourses of gay people as passive, diseased consumers. However, Beanie's argument is predicated upon the assumption that these gay businesses are visible to the public gaze. Most of Chinatown's gay businesses deliberately design their shop fronts to appear either non-descriptive or respectable to passers-by. Indeed, I went to Chinatown once in search of these businesses, armed with both the addresses and an intimate familiarity of the enclave from having lived there almost all my life. It still took me several attempts before I found some of these clandestine operations. And it's a kind of a duh question. When I do my presentation to non-Singaporeans, I would ask, I will ask the audience, guess which of these buildings is a gay business. But considering the crowds here, I think you know what business I am referring to, and I think you guys know where it is. Can anyone illuminate? What business am I right? It's Raira, right? So which one of these is Raira? Or was Raira? The one? Which one?
The turquoise green one.
Yeah, it's this one. Right. It's kind of a duh question. But the point here is that you won't be able to tell, assuming that you are straight or if you are just newly out and you have no idea where Raira is, right? And there's no way that you can tell that this building here is Raira. Unless you so happen to walk past the veranda and you see that on the glass door, this tiny little sign that says Raira. Otherwise, if you just walk past, it's very difficult for you to know that this is a bathhouse, right? Despite their generally anomalous nature, not all of the business decided to be invisible. 4 of them hang rainbow flags outside of the premises to publicly proclaim the gayness of the spaces therein. As emblems of the international gay and lesbian movement, these flags promise freedom from the strictures of state police homosexuality. However, I question the flag's effectiveness as a certificate of defiance. Of the 4 out-and-out businesses, one is a tour agency, right, Mango Travels. Its flag hangs outside of its office window, but out of the pedestrian's line of sight 4 stories below. Right. 2 gay bars also use the flags prominently as decorative pennants. Here we have Tantric, right, and we have Backstage, right. However, most Singaporeans are oblivious to what the rainbow flag represents, so it is very unlikely that pedestrians know what the flags demarcate, much less their social implications. Lastly, although they promise freedom, rainbow flags are inherently race and gendered. In symbolizing a Western mode of gayness, they unwittingly posit a Western gay male gaze, namely an omniscient, unreflexive gaze whose erotic and practical politics are based on an imagined level playing field for all queers. Indeed, the playing field in Singapore is not equal. During my fieldwork last year, I asked Alex here, the owner of the now defunct Raira, on his reasons for locating his bathhouse in Chinatown, instead of the Malay-Muslim enclave at Kampong Glam or the Indian one at Little India. He replied, and I quote, Kampong Glam. Actually, I did look at one location along Arab Street. The building wasn't suitable and I wasn't comfortable with the fact that it was within a stone's throw away from Sultan Mosque. Little India, forget it. We have to face the fact that Singaporeans are terribly racist. Most Singaporeans would not want to step into Little India on a Sunday. In other words, Alex's business would have suffered because the weekends are when South Asian menial laborers gather in Little India at such numbers as to block traffic. Indeed, there are no gay businesses, as far as I can tell, in Little India. Of the 2 bathhouses that are not in Chinatown, one is located in the civic district across the Singapore River, and that's Tower Club, and the other one is in Kampong Glam, and that's Blue Heaven. Most gay businesses reinforce existing social prejudices instead of challenging them. However, at least one entrepreneur set up his business with contesting state-enforced heteronormativity in mind. Having spoken to many lawyer friends, Alex hypothesized that the anti-sodomy laws belong to what is known as the grey deck section of the Penal Code because they are rarely enforced. Raira was his way to test this hypothesis. Indeed, the police paid Raira a visit within the month it opened, and Alex described the encounter. The police asked whether we have a license. I asked, what sort of license would you like to have? They said, would you think you ought to need to have a license? I said, I'm sure I don't. They said, all health centers should have a license. I told them, bullshit, tell me what is the license that all health centers should have. They said, I don't know. I said, how are you a police officer if you don't know? The leader of the group stepped forward and said, there's such a thing as a massage license, right? I said,